Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting by M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting we are doing today is called Heading West. And this is as I promised last week, this is yet another redo. And as you can see right now, you just get a brief glimpse of the original here, but it had some real compositional problems. It had some things I liked about it, but basically I ended up reconfiguring the painting extensively. And one of the ways that I accomplished this was by recompositing some bits of reference onto a photo of the original painting prior to going in with my brushes and redoing things. So if it seems like I know exactly what I'm doing and where I'm headed, you can know that that's the reason why. And one thing I sort of discovered when I was doing this redo, right now you can see I'm going in with basically it's raw umber, and I'm kind of drawing with the raw umber. And the reason I chose raw umber because it was a warm yet fairly neutral tone. I didn't want to go in with a very dark tone at the edges. I wanted to have, but I needed to establish new shapes and new forms and my new composition. And so you'll see I probably will do one more redo of the I don't know, 15 or so. This is probably about 2 months ago I did this now. And raw umber is actually a color that I haven't been using my entire time as a oil painter. I probably added it about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. And it's sort of interesting. The reason I sort of discovered it was that I had to do some I was doing some restoration on another deceased painter's paintings for a friend of mine, and I discovered that this was a color that he used a lot of, and so I went out and bought a tube, and I just found it really, really good for what I do, and it's always awesome when you can find a color that's so useful. And for me, raw umber is very useful. It's basically like the color of warm dirt, and you can see how it'd be a very useful color in landscape painting. And I have to say, I'm using it more and more all the time. I can get a fantastic green just by adding some yellow to it. I can step it into my chromatic black, which is comprised of phthalo green and alizarin crimson, and kind of start working off into a warmer sort of green, dark sort of range. Not even green, it's a kind of very neutral color, and that's one of the things I like about it, is that I can lay down a bunch of this raw umber and then put a couple dots of green on top. You read the whole passage as green. So that's what I mean by neutral. It is very neutral. And seeing as it's probably made out of dirt, to be honest, I really don't know what they make it out of, but it is a completely light, fast pigment. And if it's a color you can mix. I mean, it's basically a kind of a muddy color, but the thing is that the real difference is it might appear to be straight up mud, yet when you thin it, you can see it's actually got a lot of transparency to it, a lot of yellow in it, and it's a very warm and giving sort of color. The other reason I use the raw umber a lot is, say I want to darken a color a bit, but if you add black to a color to darken it, it will cool it down as well as muddy it up. Which, there's lots of times where your color has too much chroma, you want to add a little bit of muddiness to it. Yet that coldness that the black brings in can be very undesirable with certain color mixtures. So the raw umber is a great alternative to that. This is actually might even be my favorite of all the redos. I was pretty happy with the one I put up last week. Who knows, maybe it's on a par with this, but you can see how this painting has a bit of a traditional feel, and one of the main reasons for that is the shapes in the trees And I think that's probably what I'm going to write about in my blog post today, is just shapes. I don't know how much I'm going to have to say about that, but that's something that I notice in my work, that my trees have a distinctive shape. And in these paintings, these redos, they have a distinctive shape still, yet it's sort of filtered through this kind of archaic way that the masters had of looking at trees. And this painting reflects that quite a lot, just in the way these trees look. And this is a very unique composition. I can't say that I've seen too many like this, but I had this really strong tree taking up the entire right side, or well, it's our right side of the painting visually, from the bottom all the way to the top. And that's really the one element that remained, as did some of the ground plane. But you can see I completely changed all the trees in the middle ground. And I'm really happy with this composition. I feel it's very successful, and I may paint it again as a larger painting. I guess it's just a update on what's happening in the studio. I'm going after my after a pass of five paintings. Actually, I'm going to make it 6. There was one I composited and did a 5x7 of, and I was going to do an 1824, and I didn't feel it was quite strong enough. But this was before I did a second pass in the 5x7 and corrected some of the aspects that I think were detracting from it. I've decided to go ahead and work that up as a 10x14. There's some of these paintings I'm doing large I've never painted before, and then some of them are compositions and motifs that I have done before in smaller sizes, and then I've worked out would make a nice larger painting, and that's exciting and interesting. I've talked about painting larger already quite a lot in this series of videos, but the key really is to use a much larger brush than I'm reaching for. 9 times, like the one I did the other day, I'm up to my 14x14, and typically in the sky I would be going with a number 8, but I put the number 8 aside and I went to a 10, which is quite a bit larger, and with good results. I'm real happy about it. At least that first initial color. Some of the paintings I've done this week previously, I feel like I want more of a buildup of paint on the board, but it's funny. Painting is a true reflection of your state of consciousness. You have an ability to affect a lot of changes and to control a lot of things, but the thing you really cannot control is where your head's at on any given day, and any painting you do is going to be a reflection of that. And of course, if you're working in multiple sessions, it's going to be a cumulative picture of where your consciousness was at through that time period. And this to me is one of the greatest reasons to paint, and gets into something I was reading recently about how we only got a minute or so left in this video, but we'll see if I can get into this. How as human beings that one of the things that motivates us is searching for meaning, and certainly for me, the reason I paint is a search for meaning, and I find meaning in creating paintings. And if you were to press me, I'd have to say, well, a painting might not be any more valid a form of expression than any other. However, it resonates with me, and there was a time in the past, maybe 100 years ago, where painting was very, very important, and this is prior to the time where it was sort of kicked around like a football, and misused and abused as a means of communication and expression. But 100 years ago or so, painting had reached the peak of perfection and beauty. And my work is certainly a commentary of that and a reflection of it, and I do find meaning in it. Hopefully, you're looking for meaning in your work as well. Anyway, I can see we're getting close to the end here. If you'd like to see more of my work, go to landscapepainter.co.nz. I will be back next week, God willing, and with another painting to share with you. Meanwhile, take good care and stay out of trouble.